All right, we'll get the AP poll next week, but we had the coaches poll to chew on this week. Texas, Ohio State 1-2. A bunch of Big Ten teams here nearing the top. Ohio State and Penn State. Illinois is sitting there at 12. Michigan is 14. Indiana made the playoff last year. They're at 19. So let's jump into some Big Ten over-unders. We have SportsLine's Mackenzie Brooks. We have Danny Kanell with us as well. We're going to kind of go back and forth on your best bets for over-unders. Danny, I'll start with you. Penn State's total is 10.5. They don't play anybody with a pulse in the non-con, so that's 3 wins right there. They're going to be 40-plus point favorites in all those games.
They have a 2-game schedule. They have Oregon at home, and they have Ohio State on the road, and I'm going to bet that they're going to go 1-1 at least in those games, probably the game at home, because I know James Franklin, the 1-15 record versus top 5 teams is brutal, but Oregon may not be a top 5 team there, and Ohio State may not either. And I do think they have, well, by the time they play them, we don't know. They probably will be, but we'll see. So they're one of the teams, of all those teams in the top 10 that people are making the case for the national championship, it's them and Clemson that have really good quarterback play returning. Everybody else has massive question marks. They've got the backs coming back. They brought in Jim Knowles to run the defense. They've got denied Dennis Sutton and others on the defensive side of the ball. I look at this schedule, and it was at minus 9 or 9.5, and it was juiced like minus 240. I actually like the plus money value of it at 10.5, and assuming they'll go 1-1 in those games, because traditionally under James Franklin they don't have the slip-up games versus lesser competition. They're pretty focused. They have a veteran presence on this team, so I don't think you see one of those letdown games, and I think they pick off one of those games against Oregon, Ohio State.
It's tough because when we ran the numbers this summer for this conference, like the big 3, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State here, we all have them projected for 10 wins. Like, I think it'll genuinely be just beating up on each other. So we have them at 9.8. I don't hate the over because I respect the optimism. I think you can get 10 wins exactly at plus 200. I'd bet all 3 of these big 3 teams for the plus 200 here, because they could go 1-1 and then they could have a slip up, or they could just pull a Penn State and just go 0-2 in the big games here. So I mean, I think they still make the Big Ten championship. I think they still have the playoff run. I think this is still their year to do it. But in the regular season, 10 wins at plus 200 might be the way to bet these big teams.
She's hanging out with Chip too much, because Chip is all over the exacta bets. Like, he loves the exact number
listen,
one.
This conference specifically,
I like it.
Even the SEC, like, I don't want to get into all that, but the parity at the top of both of these conferences is going to be really interesting.
All right, so Penn State, Danny says over 10.5. Mackenzie says exactly 10. Only other game, that game at Iowa, you go back-to-back at Iowa and at Ohio State, that might be a little tricky too. USC, Mackenzie, they have been under 7.5 in the regular season each of the last 2 seasons. What do you like here?
Listen, if Lincoln Riley goes under 8 wins again, he's going to be moving out of the state of California. This is not about power rankings. It's about your schedule, right? When we're looking at win totals, this is a team that should surefire go 4-0 to start the season. Then they go and play Illinois, a game I think they can win, and you'll hear a little bit more about that in a second. But from there, I mean, after that, you got to go like 2-2 in the 4 games you're around 60% favorites in. We have a few, we see a percent chance you have to win these games. Go 2-2 in games you're like a field goal favorite in. Feels like a very reasonable thing to ask this team. So again, do I think it's the best team since sliced bread? No, but do I like the beginning of the schedule? Do I like them against Illinois and to go 500 in some tougher coin flip games? I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that of them.
Lincoln Riley had a kind of a confidence about him in Vegas at Big Ten Media Days. They didn't make a move to go get a quarterback, so they obviously feel pretty good about Jaden Maeva, their quarterback who took over from Miller Moss last year. And last year he kept saying, and I know USC fans were tired of hearing it, it's like, we're close, we're close. They lost a lot of tight games last year. The Penn State, good teams, Penn State, Notre Dame, there were a couple closer games for them. I think they swing those around this year, so I'm with you. I'll go it over too.
Interesting when you talk top tier of the Big Ten and you talk the big 3, and it's Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and you don't really mention Michigan. Michigan has a high win total, though, Danny, at 9.5, because they avoid Penn State, Oregon, and Illinois.
But their non-conference is a little bit tougher. They still have to beat Ohio State. What would be the 5th time in a row there to finish the season, which wouldn't be shocking. I'm on the under here, even though it is minus money. I think the Oklahoma game is really tricky for them. And a lot of this comes down to the expectations around a superstar quarterback at Nebraska. Keep an eye on that game as well, because I think Nebraska is going to be better this season. But I'm not even sure Bryce Underwood is the starter. I think Mikey Keene, the transfer who's been at UCF and Fresno State, I think they might go with him to be more of that game manager and sprinkle in Bryce Underwood. And of all the quarterbacks with expectations on, think Julian Sayin, Tyler Simpson at Alabama, like first-year starters, not many of them are true freshmen. So we're asking a kid who just got to campus in January, who struggled in the spring game, to elevate this team. I think they're probably 9 wins. I don't think it's 8, but I think 9 wins is a pretty safe bet here.
You're not in on the $8 million teenager?
I know. Well, that's the numbers. Like, I asked Sharon more of that. The first thing that he said, he's like, don't believe those numbers. Like, he made sure, don't believe the hype. But I'm not buying into it.
We have them on 8.8. Like, we have them right under the big 3 here. Just to play, like, so I technically agree with you. Just to play devil's advocate, like, they literally only play Ohio State, mind you, who they typically have in mental warfare. So there's even a chance that they do win that game. But, I mean, you have to think about the upside of Bryce Underwood. And, again, maybe he doesn't even start. But, I mean, they're 22nd in returning defensive production. Like, their defense will always be solid. They'll always put at least a few wins on the board for them. Personally, a number I'm staying away from with all the unknowns. But technically, I'm with you. 8.8 wins from the SportsLine model.
When you look at the coaches poll, Michigan is ranked behind Illinois. But Illinois has a win total that is lower than Michigan's. In fact, you can find it as low as 7.5 at some places for a team that could be top 15 in the AP poll come Monday.
I feel bad. I feel like this is was a fraudulent 10-win team. Like, if you look at their actual point differential, it literally would spit out 7 wins. Like, Iowa had a better point differential, and they were an 8-win team. Like, they lost by 66 to Indiana and barely beat Purdue. Like, it was just a wild season. And you talk about Michigan where some games didn't go their way. Illinois got a little lucky in some situations, in my opinion. So if you're taking the production that you got last year, you are technically churning out like a 7-win team. And then there's some 65% favorite games here. You would have to go 4-0 in those to go over that 7.5 win total. So at plus money, close to plus 150, I think you take the under, maybe a bit of a regression year for Illinois.
I'm biased because the Cover 3 podcast is officially a Luke Altmaier podcast now that we got to sit down and talk with him. I think that's the reason you kind of trust him in some of those one-possession games, some of the reason they were able to win some of those tight games last year. I don't love it either way, though. I'm not like running to the bank to take Illinois on the over either by any means.
All right, let's go to another former Big Ten West team, the Iowa Hawkeyes. And this is a schedule here it's got to be the most difficult schedule Iowa has had probably since before the Big Ten West, before like Nebraska joined the conference, because they have to play 3 playoff teams from a season ago: Indiana, Penn State, Oregon. But, Danny, they're all at Kinnick.
Yep, I'm going over on this one. And I did this just for you, Hassel. I didn't even know you were hosting the show today, but I still do like this squad. I have them as a dark horse make the playoff team because of that schedule. Like, if they go 9-3, they better be in that discussion. But they have had such atrocious quarterback play, and they finally, I think, found one in Mark Gronowski, who won not 1 but 2 national championships at the FCS level, including a former Player of the Year award at that level, which is similar to Cam Ward, before when he was an Incarnate Ward, won the same award. If they just get adequate, and I think they'll get good quarterback play out of Gronowski. The defense you have to trust. The offensive line you have to trust. Like, they just always have a very physically sound team. And with the new offensive system that they implemented last year, I think Gronowski's going to excel. Kirk Ferentz told me he's healthy, like he's coming back off the surgery he had this offseason. I like him to go over.
All right, one more play here, and it's from Mackenzie and the SportsLine model. Washington, hard to figure out. I mean, they're in the national championship game a couple of years ago. Then they joined the Big Ten. They got to retool everything. They didn't bring anybody back. This year, the win total is 7.5, and I've heard a lot of people bullish on the Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have them as a double-digit win team, but we have them at 8.2, which is enough for me to want to take the over 7.5 here. Damon Williams, obviously small sample size, but from what we see and what the data sees, it's a 78% completion percentage, 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. Year 2 of your head coach, you return your top wide receiver, you return your 1,000-yard running back. As far as production you want to return, return. They have most of it. And then you have Devon Williams, who I think does have a high ceiling. So a lot of games last year, like a lot of the teams we were talking about, where it was kind of, they didn't look terrible a lot. I think there's a lot of games that could have went their way. And I think that he is the answer for Michael Penix Jr. relative to last season.
All right, Danny, what's on the latest Cover 3 podcast? Every time I
win
ask
totals.
you this, you remember.
But
okay.
tomorrow's the mailbag. We've been doing win totals. ACC we just finished up. Next week we'll do some more, but tomorrow's a little mailbag episode.
I want to come to the win totals.
Let's go.
All right, and Mackenzie's content can be found at SportsLine. 60% off an annual plan when you go to sportsline.com/join and use the promo code WINNERS.